Hi, welcome to the latest episode of the Wellbeing Show. Thanks for tuning in. I've got a great guest with me, Sky, who I've just been chatting to before, who has Gallic pronouns, Faye, Fear, and Fear. I've got that wrong. They're going
No,
to
you did
tell
fine.
me, they're going to tell me how much I got it, which is really embarrassing because I am Irish and I should really know my own natural language. But I'm going to claim hundreds of years of oppression by the English as to why I can't say it better. That's my out. All right, you English or bad people. And we're going to be talking to Sky very soon. Just to remind you, we record as if it's live, but it isn't live when you watch it. So don't call me at that point, but do send me a message 07506 319 745. It'd be lovely to hear what you think about it. Do, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. All that marketing nonsense, please do it because it really helps. And do let me know what you like and don't like as well. I'm really sort of having feedback commentary is really helpful. I find it interesting as well to understand what people think about this stuff. Um, so, without further ado, Sky, welcome to the Wellbeing Show. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm good.
Great. You're in Portugal at the moment, right?
I am. Yeah.
So you're on the same time zone as us. Usually, somebody with your accent is either at the beginning or the end of their day when they're having a chat with me. And but you're in Portugal. What brought you to Portugal?
Um, I did not like the political climate in the United States.
Okay, fair comment. There's a lot of people who've left the US for that
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
And understandably so, I would say. I don't like it. I'm glad I don't have to
Yeah.
make that decision to leave, to be honest.
Yeah. I think the United States has way too much power and nobody likes it because it affects everybody in the world.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, I'm a great fan of the US as I knew it. I genuinely, I've been there quite a lot. I've even driven across the country, but its current political leadership and iterations are frightening to me. They scare me.
Yes. I agree. I was really scared about it and
Yeah,
I'm heartbroken about how immigrants are being treated, how trans people are being treated,
sure.
and I am very proud of how the American people have resisted
Yeah.
beyond anything I could have imagined. You know,
And it's a story that isn't told enough about the resistance. We see it sometimes in some cities, Minnesota most notably, but actually there's been a lot of very organized pushback on what is going on. So there isn't a simplistic story there. And we're seeing some of that importation into the UK at the moment, unfortunately. And we look at Belfast at the moment and some of the uh,
yeah.
southern cities in the UK. There are bad actors in this country who are copying the processes in the US and importing them here inappropriately. Let's hope we don't go as far as that. Um, we're going to discuss trans issues, we're going to discuss human rights, I'm sure, etc. But I'd like to know a little bit about where and how you grew up, and if you don't mind, tell us, a little bit about
Um,
little Sky. Where was she?
um, uh, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio,
Right,
and I lived there till I was like a week before my 14th birthday. I am the oldest of six children,
right.
and very Irish American Catholic culture.
Yeah.
Um,
Which means
and
what exactly? Inform us.
uh, you have to think like my family was the type of family that would contribute to the to Sinn Féin or the
Yeah,
yeah, right. And all the so St. Patrick's Day was a huge event. My father was part of the Knights of Columbus. Um, the My father and many of his he's one of 13. Many of his brothers went to Notre Dame,
yeah,
you know, the Fighting Irish football team.
sure.
And so and I think that like how it affected culturally was lots of humor, dancing, singing. My father had a really beautiful tenor voice, and lots of alcoholism. Not that that necessarily comes with being Irish or Irish American, but certainly did in my family.
Sure.
And yeah, a
And
sense of fun, though. There was so much
right,
of,
right.
yeah, of that was the good part, you know.
Yeah. And you were born, you were assigned a gender at birth, which you don't necessarily identify with now.
Right. I was assigned female at birth, and I don't identify with that gender. Um, Fair Fares is a neo-pronoun. It's under the trans and non-binary umbrella, and
Okay.
I identify as both. I kind of feel like trans non-binary. Um, Non-binary is trans, but I really hate to identify with a non. It
Okay.
just, you know,
I hear that.
yeah, it
It's
just
like
doesn't make sense to
you want
me.
something more
I'm not
positive
a
in your
nut
life.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a
So,
something.
for people who might not be as familiar with the issues as yourself or even myself, just can you give us some bullet points on what we're talking about here? Because some people still think in very what we call binary terms, but
Right, right. So there's a whole different way of thinking about gender.
okay,
And I think it was really initiated by Gen Z, which, and young children who were either saying that they identify with the opposite gender that they were assigned, sometimes as early as 4 or 5.
yeah,
And then other children who were saying, I don't feel like I am a man or a woman. And then that, it kind of filtered up through the
yeah,
ages.
yeah,
Um, for me, I would say I'm like a Gen X boomer, so a very different generation. But I can say from birth, I had so many gender non-conforming behaviors and
yeah,
expressions
sure,
that I just wasn't ever like, we would have said tomboy,
sure,
you know, androgynous sometimes, but I just didn't ever act like a girl.
yeah,
And nor did I really act like a boy.
yeah,
And I don't like to say that I'm a mix. I like to say I'm fey, which is something altogether different, right?
yeah,
Instead of even a line is a binary. So we don't just have male on one side, female on the
sure,
other, with a lot of different iterations in between. I think we have a constellation of genders,
yeah.
and I exist in the galaxy of genders.
And the science bears that out. I mean, there are 32 biological sexes currently, four distinct at chromosomal level, and 96 markers of gender genetically. So it's sort of like it is a much more complex and always has been much more complex than people have acknowledged up until recently. And with the sort of absolute courage of people to come out and say, hang on, there's something wrong here. Doesn't fit me, or I don't fit it. Whatever it is, there's no fit. And so people have been incredibly courageous, as far as I can say. Recently, the British Medical Association, which is the union for doctors here, challenged some of the laws in the UK, saying that they're scientific nonsense. So some of the
That's
binary
amazing. Yeah.
there was a recent ruling by the Human Rights Commission about some law that Parliament passed saying it's scientifically illiterate, is what they said. Sort of like because it reinforces this notion of binary biology, and we've known for a long time binary biology is nonsense. It doesn't exist. So,
And I mean, I can say, um, that my own personal experience,
sure.
in terms of my body, I had a lot of body hair. I
Yeah,
am a mesomorph. I develop muscles very easily. I'm
yeah,
strong, I'm athletic. These are not, I think that it would bear out what you're saying, which
sure,
is
sure.
the science.
It's a spectrum of experience and biology, and growing up though in that sort of environment, it's like, hang on, what sort of did you come out at any point when you were younger? I mean, was it an issue or was it tolerated? You were like you could fit a category called tomboyish girl or something. So
Yeah, I mean, certainly everybody called me a tomboy.
Okay.
And I think it was a very strange kind of intersection because, my father, who was a football player for Notre Dame, which is a big deal, he was a big deal athlete. I was so much more athletic than my brothers. And and my father, he would take me, and I have a brother who's my Irish twin, right? 13 months younger than I am.
Sure.
He'd take us both out in the field and teach us football or whatever. Um, and my brother was kind of timid and scared, and I loved it. And so on the weekends, my father took me to American football games, and he, on one hand, really enjoyed and encouraged who I naturally was.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, he was totally misogynist.
Yeah.
So, when I got a little bit older and I said, well, I'm going to be a football player when I grow up. And he said, well, you'll have to get brass breastplates. And, like you're never going to be able to do that. And of
Yeah.
course, now there are football leagues for different genders. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so it was a very weird kind of conflict. And um, I think for my father, me being a tomboy was a big plus. For my mother, it was a big minus.
Right.
And and I stood out in other ways in school and I was bullied.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like that kind of presentation. I also I just could not get that I was supposed to care about the male gaze. And so I'm in a Catholic school
Yeah,
and
right. Was it a
I
girls'
have
school or co-ed?
no, it was co-ed.
Right,
And
okay.
and I had opinions about like everything we read and I loved ideas and I would raise my hand and I'd say what I think and if it contradicted the boys I didn't care, but they cared, so that kind of gender nonconformity was also really active for me.
Um, and people should understand, people who are not from, who are not as old as you and I, let's put it frankly, won't understand that. I get what you're saying. When I was in school, until second wave feminism hit, only the boys put their hands up, the girls never did. I mean, and people would look at that now and just think that's bizarre. Why would that happen? But the research came out, I remember in the UK saying that one of the reasons why girls were held back is because they didn't put their hands up and all this sort of stuff. And so new teaching strategies came in to encourage girls to be more active. But it was certainly, it would have been weird to everybody because you weren't
Yeah, I
supposed to
mean,
be like that as a girl, right?
no. And I mean, we moved when I was 14, we changed states, went to a more liberal state, which
Sure.
it was a much better move for me. And my parents sent me to an all girls Catholic school, I say, 2,999 girls and me. Um, but at that school, it was all
Was that a
girls.
conscious choice in their part? Were your mum, she wanted you to be girlified by sending you to an all-girls school or?
It was the nearest Catholic school, so
Okay,
they just
right.
wanted me to go to a Catholic school.
Okay.
And that particular school had, like, on one side of the campus, it was this huge girls' school, and on the other
Sure.
side of the campus, it was a school for boys. So,
Yeah.
but we competed for grades, we competed for who was smart. Like, there was a way, there's Catholic school has so many downsides.
Yeah.
But I was like, thank, whatever, whoever, that I ended up in a place where I could be openly smart, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, to switch to a binary sort of terminology for a short time, there's plenty of evidence that girls-only schools are good for girls in many
Right.
ways. That they don't face the same levels of misogyny and risk and danger and oppression, and so academically can be a lot more successful. I mean, there's other issues as well if we go into a non-binary world, but actually it can be very successful for girls, really. So I can imagine, yes, there was a freeing sense as well as something else. But were you conscious even at that point? Did you have a language to suggest I don't really fit into this situation?
I didn't have language,
Right.
but I knew that I felt like I didn't fit in.
Okay.
And that it was really, and this is a pattern that has continued throughout my life. I am a person, I know a ton of people, but I like to be close to about three.
Yeah,
Like 3 to 5 people is about
sure.
what I can to be, and I like to be really intimate with who I'm intimate with.
Okay,
I want to know each other fully. So in high school, I always had a best friend and then a couple of other really close friends.
sure.
And I started working when I was 16 at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah,
And I was like, the people that worked there had graduated from high school and they were hippies. So I found while I was still in Catholic school, I was working with people who were very counterculture.
right.
And that was an incredible blessing in terms of me being not like just naturally nonconformist.
Okay.
That's something that was welcomed by hippies, you know?
Yeah, so you
So,
found your tribe, as it were.
yeah, through
Yeah.
luck. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't know to go looking, but I was lucky. So,
But it is, I mean, it's a familiar story. I mean, in some ways, our generation, we had those opportunities, which I don't necessarily think are there for young people now. There isn't those countercultures going on. There's the identity politics and identity groups and stuff like that. But like I fell into the world of theatre and performance, and that
mm,
was my culture that could tolerate my weirdness, and I felt right at home there. I didn't feel strange amongst strangers, It was like really cool. But I wonder whether young people have those opportunities now. Their lives seem so prescribed and controlled, and the outcomes and the whole Instagram thing. That's a separate issue, maybe. Um, you describe yourself in your audiobook and in the press release as living with multiplicity. So do you mind if we talk about that a little bit and what you mean by that? I think I know, but maybe people don't understand that.
so I say that I'm a plural person. That being plural is part of my identity. And, that means multiple consciousness in one body.
Yeah,
Um, if you want to go into diagnoses, it would be now DID, dissociative identity disorder, um, multiple personality disorder.
that
But
the original old one is multiple personality disorder. They're all disorders, and as opposed to something else. I mean, it's like I get it. So, and usually they're associated with some sort of traumatic experience and stuff like that in the literature. Would that be true for you or not?
yes, yes,
Right. Okay.
I mean, that's the other side of how I grew up. It was a lot of trauma.
Right.
And but there are people now who I think partly because of the popularity of internal family systems,
Yeah.
there are people identifying as plural who don't identify as DID.
Sure.
But for me, I think, I've been healing for 38 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I embrace plurality.
Sure.
I say I'm a healed plural person.
Yeah.
It's always healing, but
Yeah.
there's a threshold that you cross when you start to have an inner sense of wholeness. And I
Sure.
didn't even notice it. When I crossed that threshold, I had a therapist say to me, you do realize you're healed. And
Yeah.
I was like, that feeling, is that what the healed is?
Yeah. Yeah. And do you mind if I just give some sort of explanation to people who might be listening, who these ideas might be new to, or you can join in and help us explain it a little bit?
Yeah.
So trauma, I mean, I grew up in an Irish Catholic British family with alcoholism, extreme violence, intercommunal violence. So I look at what's going on in Belfast right now and I'm like, oh, that's very familiar. My family, certainly my mother's side, were provisional IRA, which you will know. You talked about donating money to that organization as a child. That's where a lot of the money came from. But like my grandfather was a brigade commander in Dublin, and my uncles were sort of paid up members, etc. So there was all this extreme stuff. I developed what would now be called CPTSD, and I had treatment for that, and I'm very grateful. My personality didn't develop what I understand as the creative defenses of multiple personalities or plurality, but yours did. And I presume in response to something like that story.
Yeah, I mean extreme violence,
Sure.
sexual abuse,
Yeah. Yeah.
community violence,
Yeah.
just lots of crimes against children,
Yeah. We're just going to
and
stop for a second.
both
We
my
always,
parents.
just for a second, I'm going to stop and remind people that if this is triggering, if you're in it right now, maybe you're experiencing something, that's okay. If this is upsetting you, that's fine. Just like it's good it's upsetting you. It is upsetting, this stuff. It's really important if you are feeling upset that you take a break. Remember, this is you can turn this on and off. You're not forced to listen to it. And also remember that you're not alone, that there is support, particularly if you feel like you might hurt yourself. I want you to call the Samaritans and give them a call now and have a chat with them, or reach out to a friend. If you have a therapist, let them know. So you're not alone. Whatever you feel, being alone is just a feeling. It's not a fact, folks. So do look after yourselves. And we too, myself and Sky, we can talk about this stuff, and we know how to look after ourselves, and we've had treatment and help. If you haven't, just take it easy on yourself, okay? Sorry, Sky, I interrupted, but
No, I think I'm so happy for the trigger warning, and that was
yeah.
very kind.
Yeah, it's really important. So you grew up in this really quite dangerous, dysfunctional childhood, and your psyche created interesting ways of you managing that without it
Yeah,
destroying you, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I think that the experience was so completely overwhelming
Yeah,
that I had to develop, like we all have parts, right? We all have parts of ourselves. And, but you can, under the pressure and the stress of trauma, those parts can separate from each other and
sure.
they can come like holding compartments
Yeah,
for experience so that you don't have to feel it all at once.
yeah,
And as a
absolutely.
child, that feels life-threatening. I think it probably is life-threatening.
Yeah.
And and so I think, I mean, that's what I did is I I sort of, I mean, I kind of I have one personality who's actually kind of a cluster. And like every 2 years, I needed a new one because like that compartment's full, get a new one.
Okay.
I can't hold anymore. All right, let's
Wow.
have another,
Wow. How
you know.
amazing. I mean, the mind is an amazing thing, isn't it? We are incredible. Humans are incredible things, particularly under stress like that, and children under that stress as well. Is as you say, it's an immature mind, a child, and so it has to do something with this stuff, right? And you have described how many sort of aspects of yourself, those internal selves, would you say you know about and that you have?
I don't ever give a number,
Okay,
and I'll tell you, I'll explain a little bit why.
please do.
So
Yes, if you don't mind.
yeah, so I have, and I think many people with histories as long and as difficult as mine, you develop polyfragmentation, right? So sometimes something is so overwhelming that you need a personality just for that one memory, or just for the feelings, or just for the pictures.
Okay,
And those personalities are never, they never develop, they're just a place to
sure,
hold.
sure.
And but I feel like within my personality system, I use the principles from queerness and feminism. Like
Right. Yeah,
everybody gets to have a voice, everybody matters, everybody's equal. It doesn't matter how much you hold. And so I can't, if I the fragments, there's many, many. And then there are more developed personalities that are more a limited number.
yeah,
But if I just feel like I want to count them all.
sure,
So
sure.
so
And if I can try
given
and put that in another language so people can get access to it, it's like all human beings are made up of a series of experiences, which when our personalities are allowed to develop without interruption, as it were, without traumatic interruption, they're still very compartmentalized. I mean, the brain does compartmentalize. So smell is physically located in one bit of the brain and sound in another bit and all that sort of stuff. And when we sleep, We sort of build connections between those bits of experience as they're sort of stored away. But in trauma, that those connections may not happen essentially, and so you have discrete. And one of the things I have, for example, I have a thing called flashbulb memories from some of the violence, which
Mhm.
is a bit like a photo, a black and white photo, which will never be animated. It will never be a film. It will never be a recoverable experience. It's just like that's a fragmented aspect of my experience, which contains that experience because it was otherwise, as a child, too much. It would have been overwhelming and destructive. And it's that really, isn't it? The that sense in which the brain is doing its best it can with stimulus that's just too much to manage. And then it comes up with these incredibly creative things, which in the past we've unfortunately called disorders as opposed to what they are. Very beautiful ways of managing what is unmanageable. Um, is it just you amongst your family, or do your siblings sort of also carry some of this stuff, or do they do the more usual stuff of just being drunk and dealing with it through
They do,
substance misuse?
yes, they do the more usual stuff of just being drunk. So I'm one of six, and the
Okay,
four of us who were had a significant part of our childhood in Ohio
right,
had much more traumatic beginning
sure.
than the two who grew up mostly in Pennsylvania. So the I think the four oldest, I think we were all alcoholics. I'm a recovering alcoholic,
Yeah.
and
Join
so
the
they,
club.
yeah, they, I mean,
All the
they
best
do,
of us are.
right. Yeah, they do the stuff of continuing to use or use food.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and and I think and to idealize the family and idealize my parents
Yeah.
and to not want to admit, the
Yeah.
truth is very I felt for many decades, I felt like it's I am the last person who should try to force the truth at people who have been this
Sure.
traumatized. If they can't
Sure.
face,
Sure. No,
what
I
would it
agree.
do to them? Right?
Yeah.
I know it was like, it
Yeah.
was very hard to face it and heal. It was
Yeah.
hard. And I think it's better to do that than to drink, but it's not my choice, it's their choice,
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think I agree with you. I'm radically respectful of other people's choices. As long as their choices don't destroy me or my life or people that I love, that's fine, and also I think, that there are um, natural processes in healing that also need to be respected. Just because I'm professional doesn't mean I know anything really, I'm constantly amazed by human beings, and what they come up with. Um, you got married, I believe, and you had is it were you married? Did I misread?
We're actually in the middle of putting the papers together. Been separated for 4 years. We were together for 35 years.
Right.
We knew each other for 4 years before that, so it's like
Okay.
44 years now.
Okay. And that was while you were healing. Did you have children as well, or did you?
We didn't have children. And we met when our birthdays are 20 days apart. So
Okay.
we met when we were both 23. We got together when we were 27. And I had just stopped drinking.
Right.
And then and I was in therapy, and they kind of followed that. So we had a life that was, I mean, this is something that, the beginning of our relationship, we were, your kids in your 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here we are, and I get sober, and I have this wonderful year, right? Of just, it's amazing to be sober. But I believe that, and this is what happened for me at 9 months of sobriety, post-traumatic stress surges. And it goes back down within a week or 2 weeks. And then somewhere between a year and year and a half, it goes up, and it doesn't go back down unless you get treatment or
Sure.
you use or you pick up a new addiction.
Yeah.
That's like seems to be the choices.
Yeah.
Um, so I got treatment. I worked on it. I was very, very committed, but it was a crisis in my life and therefore in my partner's life.
Sure.
But part of it was because I'm the oldest. In my family, I had a sister who was 13. I had a niece who was 2. They were at risk. They were being exposed without supervision to
Sure.
very dangerous people. And so, I reported my father to the police. I testified before the Committee to get the statute of limitations removed. And my ex went into schools as part of programs teaching safe touch to kids so the kids
Right.
would know how
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
unsafe touch. And
Wonderful.
I mean, what an amazing, I'm so proud of that. It was such a hard period of our life
Sure.
together, but
Sure.
it was so meaningful.
Yeah.
Like we were doing something with the hard, you
Yeah.
know?
And also presume big as you were getting the treatment, you were getting to understand your plural inner world much more. And you
I,
were making sense of it, and your partner was making sense of it with you.
it was, it was very interesting in the
Sure.
early 90s because the treatment, unless you were lucky, most of the treatment wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And,
That was
and
before EMDR and etc. Yeah. Yeah.
No EMDR,
Yeah.
no somatic experiencing, no internal family systems.
Yeah.
There was some parts work, but it wasn't popular. There was
Well, there was
for,
all Freudian, post-Freudian stuff that was doing. So, like, there was ego psychology in America, it was similar. Object relations in Europe, which is similar, but it's not the same as parts work. So, yeah, no, it's a very limited stuff, very definitely.
yeah, I mean, there were the expressive therapies, and then
Yeah,
if you're plural, if you were multiple, there was Colin Ross and Richard Cluft, and they both had books, and Richard Cluft in particular did conferences. So it was, I had these people who were so wonderful who were in my life,
yeah,
two best friends and my ex, and they were so excited to meet all the me's, you know,
great.
and and so there was, and
So they
then
weren't
they,
afraid of this. They weren't sort of, it didn't become like this Hollywood monster movie type thing. It was like, how much fun is this?
it was like a playground.
Yeah.
And it was the inner child movement was in full force. So if I would go to
Yes.
a
Yes.
support group, I was immediately popular
Yeah.
because I had so much access to playfulness in my inner kids.
Yeah.
And
You
people would
had
be
so
like,
many of
"You
them as
teach me
well.
how to play?" You know, I'm
Great.
sorry.
You had so many of them as well. It was like
Yes.
lots and
Yeah.
lots of them. Wonderful.
So
Super. Super.
that was really great. And this is a very kind of ironic thing. I had a terrible therapist and
Did you?
just, oh my God, told me she loved me, called me every day, I accelerated the treatment. I was getting more and more dysregulated,
Right.
and I talked her into lending me the training materials, and I read them all, and I developed basically my own internal family systems,
Right.
and I
Right.
fell in love with my system,
Okay.
which is, I mean,
That's
that's for
ideal.
a
Yeah.
person, that's self-love, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
some of it was some people in my system hated each other or blamed each other, and I we worked through that together.
Yeah.
And it's spiritual, it's magical, it's very hard, it's the hero's journey,
Sure.
and it gave a lot of sense of purpose and meaning to my life. And then I took everything I learned about consent and listening, and I brought that to being a teacher, a director on film and theater. It
Super.
was, yeah.
Super. Tell us about internal I was just about infernal. Freudian slip that. Internal family systems. What's that? Just explain
So
to folks.
it was originated by Dick Schwartz, and
Yeah.
he says that he understood it by listening to his clients
Yeah.
because people would say, well, one part of me feels like this, but this other part of me feels like that. And so he was like, wow, they're all talking about parts.
Yeah.
And eventually he came to understand that we all have inside of us what in Hinduism is also the biggest self. It's the center of divinity.
Yeah.
And that part of us, which is the center of us, it's the essence of who we are, cannot be changed by experience. So it can't be destroyed by trauma. It can be buried, though.
Yeah.
And then the parts that of us, Dick divided them into categories. So there are protectors, and those are the parts of us that are trying to protect us from hurt.
Yeah.
And under protectors, there's managers who are proactive and firefighters who are like, this is bad, got to make it go away. And
Yeah.
that's usually like, I'm going to drink, I'm going to work, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And then exiles who carry the pain. And just so these very kind of categories of parts. And the idea is that you listen to parts and you work with parts and you
Sure.
keep bringing them back to the biggest self, to that center of light, which is the thing that can really heal you.
Yeah.
The radical change, besides having a spiritual component to psychotherapy, is that it's totally client centered. It's not the therapist who's going to heal you,
Yeah.
it's this center of um, light and curiosity and confidence and compassion, and marrying that to the experience of your other parts is the key to
Yeah.
to the key to
And
freedom.
and I imagine that for somebody who had so much negative interference from powerful figures in your life, being empowered in that way was quite a liberation in terms of you setting the agenda in your internal world and the various democratic processes that you put in place within your psyche. That in itself was really important, that component.
Yeah, I found that before IFS. I mean, I have
Right.
done some IFS therapy, but the IFS was late in the game for me.
Okay.
I'd already figured out almost all of it by the time I found Dick Schwartz.
Really? Right.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
was.
so was that more like, okay, the world has caught up with me? It's like, hang on.
Yeah, well, I did because like I said in the 90s, treatment where I lived was not very advanced.
Sure.
I attended therapist conferences, I read all the articles and all the literature, and I did that for a while, and then I was like, you know what, I think I'm just going to listen to my intuition.
Okay,
And
cool.
and
Cool.
then I started doing yoga and I started doing meditation and I
Yeah.
started doing like movement and theater, and then like 7 years after I was well into that, Bessel van der Kolk was like, you should do yoga, you should do theater. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm ahead of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it is like that. There's a time lag between like the evidence base and what we know works and what people work. That sort of lived experience stuff, which I presume you got as well from your recovery from alcoholism, etc. The validation of lived experience and lived experience with other peers in particular that you could
Yeah,
share the
other
journey with.
survivors. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
especially queer people and feminists
Sure, sure.
who were already developing um, models that give as much agency as possible to the person who
Absolutely.
has the experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And these days you're sort of you're like I mean, you have a broad range of creative interests, right? You're a
Yes.
screenwriter, a performer, except tell us something about what you're involved with, the broad range of creative skills that you're sort of using at the moment.
Um, well, at the moment, the very like in Portugal, I'm doing storytelling.
Okay.
So it's true stories told live, and you get up and you tell a story for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and that is I put that under the heading of solo performance.
Yeah.
So I have done full solo shows, and I really love ensemble work, but I don't want to play cisgendered women anymore.
Okay.
So
That's right.
after 20 years of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a type, and I'm like, the type is like the strong woman with a hidden vulnerability, and
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just a non-binary person. But so I do that. So I do solo performance, and I've been doing that since 2017. And then I just did the audiobook. And I completed the memoir, released the memoir, and my writing group was like, there's an intersection. You're a writer actor. Why don't you do an audiobook?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, it was so hard.
Was it?
47 voices, 47
Right.
voices. And
Right.
and some of those voices are my parents, you know?
Oh, wow.
And so I
Wow.
did,
Yeah. 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 I get it. I
yeah.
get it.
So,
I
and
get
there,
it.
it's the people I dated, and it was
Yeah.
technically difficult. I mean, if you're in theater, right? We
Yeah.
do accent work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Takes me 3 weeks to really learn an
Of
accent well.
course. Of course.
I had to do 5 accents.
Right.
Puerto Rican accent, mixed British and Russian,
Yeah.
Boston,
Yeah.
Ohio. So I was like, how do I learn this many accents to
Sure.
do and then keep track of when they
Sure.
come and come back? And then the emotional toll of playing my parents, sometimes treating me badly. And then I played all of me,
Yeah.
which, and I think the thing that was, I mean, is it egotistical to be like totally in love with your own personalities? But,
No, I don't
there's
think
like,
so.
yeah, so I have like a 16-year-old personality who's so um, kind of outspoken and
Sure.
badass, and
Sure.
that was every time that he came out, it was fun.
Yeah.
But then I had personalities who I've heard them in my head my whole life, but I had never narrated them out loud
Oh,
before.
wow. How
And I was like, oh,
exciting.
well, that's what you sound like?
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. That's just
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, it was an unbelievable experience to do.
Super. Super. And
And
that
it was,
mode of doing it, the audiobook, must have been quite unique in that sense, you know. It's got something very magical about it, I think, audiobooks. Hearing a voice, in your case, many voices, and then listening to it. What was that like? I mean, doing it and then listening to it. I mean, I can't bear to listen to myself. I have to say, I've never heard myself and thought, oh, I like the sound of my voice. I've never done that, but. What was that like to listen back to yourself and listen to the various yous?
yeah, I mean, I have a thing.
Uh-huh.
So, I am a film actor.
Yeah.
And so for
So
20
you've had to
years,
learn to tolerate it. Yes. Quite.
I have to watch myself three
Yeah.
times because the first time I just want to fall down and writhe
That's
on the floor.
I know that feeling. I never get back past that one.
And the second time I'm like, all right, well that was good. I don't know about that. That was good. And
Yeah.
then the third time I can kind of stand and say, relatively objectively,
Okay.
this was a good performance. This was my best performance. This was not my best work.
Sure.
And so I had to do that with the audiobook. Like I listened and I was like, no, I got to do that again. No, I got to do that again. So
Right.
I had a lot of the nothing was good enough.
Yeah.
And then and I also had, sometimes I would listen to it and just cry,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there was grief, it wasn't unknown material, but it's still my life.
Yeah.
I have a line I said in this solo show that I did, the line is, I, I'm never going to get to be somebody it didn't happen to.
Yes. I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's right. Yeah.
And people would start crying in the audience,
Yeah.
and they weren't crying for me. They were crying because they also want to be somebody who
Yeah.
parts of their life didn't happen to.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, the grief thins, the more work you do, it thins. But for me, some of it has gone away, some of it hasn't. It
Yeah.
just maybe will never go away.
Yeah.
And so I had that part of it. And and then I laughed out loud at myself, you know, and I felt love and compassion. And I think I just keep doing it until I end up at love and compassion.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like one of the gifts of plurality is this clarity for knowing the parts of yourself. If you're a single personality person, you don't hear the voices
Yeah,
because they're not as separate. And I felt a kind of humbled awe,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and this hope, like maybe other people will listen to this and they will understand that knowing all the parts of yourself, the ones you identify with, the ones you kind of wish weren't there, your critics, whatever,
yeah,
that welcoming them all home
yeah.
is a path to peace and compassion and love, you know?
That's the saying for our times, isn't it, really? That we have so many leaders at the moment who don't know themselves at all and project their internal hatred out onto everybody else, and it's horrific. It's
Yeah.
horrific, and I wish them love and compassion, but I also wish they'd shut up and go away, to be honest.
Yeah. I have a particular, I'm sure you can guess who person I'm like, I could send you metta, Buddhist loving kindness,
Yeah,
as long as you're locked up somewhere that you can't get out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can think of a few places to lock him up. Um, and hopefully that will happen soon. Got a few in England we could get rid of. Look, it's been a genuine pleasure to meet you, Sky. Genuine pleasure. So really loved having our conversation today. Hope it was good for you. And what's the audiobook called?
It's Bachelor X.
Right?
So that's non-binary. You put an X on
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
so it's Bachelor X, a non-binary memoir.
Great. And how can people get it? Is it on Audible or
It's available on Audible, Amazon, and Apple, and it
great?
will be, there's like 30 more platforms it will be
Okay.
available on.
Okay,
But they
great.
can always go to my website, lyralenk.com
Say your
and
website again.
lyralenk.com. So LYRALENKAYE.com. It's my middle name and my last name.
Super.
And and all the books are up there. So
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us. We have to leave it there for now, folks. I hope you found that as illuminating and warm and human and compassionate as I did, and a much needed conversation for our times in these times when there seems to be so much distrust and anger and hatred and violence. You see, we can talk about these things without blowing up the world. Isn't that amazing? How does that work? Hmm, okay. Anyway, it's lovely to have you. You stay there. Bye bye, folks. I hope to get your feedback on the subjects and issues. Do message me, or if you're watching this on YouTube, do subscribe, or on one of my other channels, just drop some comments. And I'll see you at the next show. And bye bye for now.